I used to think that being the responsible daughter meant my parents would one day see me for who I really was. Turns out, it just meant they could take me for granted. My name is Lydia Carter, and this story starts with a single text message that broke something inside me. It was early June, the start of summer. I was sitting on the porch with my 8-year-old son Noah, drinking lemonade and talking about where we could go for vacation. He'd been saving his allowance all year, hoping we could visit the beach. "Even just one day, Mom," he said with those pleading eyes. "I want to build sandcastles like on TV." I smiled, pretending it was possible, but inside I already knew it wasn't. Money had been tight ever since I left my job to take care of my dad during his surgery. My parents had promised they'd pay me back for all the bills I covered. They never did. A notification buzzed on my phone, a message from Mom. I opened it, expecting her usual questions about Noah or some photo from her garden. But this time it was just one line: "Your sister and Lily are going to Myrtle Beach this summer. We'll cover their tickets, they need the break." I stared at the message, reading it again. My sister Hannah was taking her daughter on vacation. Paid for by our parents, the same parents who told me 2 weeks ago that they couldn't afford to help with anyone's travel this year. I typed and deleted my reply 3 times before finally sending, "That's nice for them. I thought you said money was tight." Mom replied instantly, "Sweetheart, you know how hard things have been for Hannah since her divorce. She needs this. You and Noah will understand." Understand. That was her favorite word whenever she wanted me to swallow unfairness. When I was 10, I understood why Hannah got the new bike and I got her old one. When I was 16, I understood why she got a car and I had to take the bus. And when I was 25, I understood why they signed her apartment lease but couldn't help with mine. Now I was 34, a single mother, and somehow still expected to understand. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, watching Noah draw a beach on a sketch pad. Blue waves, yellow sand, and 2 stick figures, one big, one small, holding hands. Underneath, he'd written, "Me and Mommy at the ocean." I had to leave the room so he wouldn't see me cry. The next day, Hannah called me, sounding annoyingly cheerful. "Guess what? Mom and Dad booked us a beachfront cottage," she chirped. "That's great," I said flatly. "You should come with us sometime." "Oh, wait," she giggled. "I forgot. You're always so busy being practical." I wanted to hang up, but I stayed silent. That's what I always did. Stay quiet, stay kind, stay overlooked. When they left for the trip, Mom sent one last message. "Keep an eye on the house while we're gone, Lydia. You have the spare key." I stared at the text for a long time. Keep an eye on the house. That was when something in me shifted. Because inside that house were years of things I had paid for: furniture, electronics, even half the kitchen appliances. I'd been the one to replace the fridge when it broke, the one who bought Dad's new recliner, the one who furnished Hannah's old room when Mom said she didn't have the energy. Every time I helped, they'd promised, "We'll pay you back when we can." They never did. Now they were using that same house to play favorites again, hosting Hannah and her daughter in the rooms I helped build, on the couch I bought, under the roof I helped repair. And suddenly, I realized something crystal clear. They only valued me when I was giving. So I decided this time I'd take back what was mine. It started innocently. I went to the house the next day under the pretense of checking the mail. Walking inside felt strange, too quiet, too familiar. Every photo on the wall screamed favoritism. Hannah's graduation, Hannah's wedding, Hannah's baby shower, none of mine. Not one photo of me or Noah. I stood there, looking at the family portrait from 2 Christmases ago, the one where I was cut off slightly at the edge of the frame. It hit me that I was never really part of their picture. So I started walking through each room, noticing everything I had contributed. The microwave mine, the recliner mine, half the dining set bought with my credit card. The wall-mounted TV, I'd purchased it as a Father's Day gift. I began to make a list. At first it felt petty, then it felt liberating. That evening I called my best friend Kara and told her what I was thinking. She paused. "Lydia, are you sure? This sounds like revenge." I laughed softly. "It's not revenge if it's mine, right?" She sighed but didn't argue. "Do what you need to do, honey. You've earned peace." For the next few days, I quietly prepared. I borrowed a small truck from a coworker, told Noah we were going to have a little adventure, and packed our essentials. When the weekend came, I unlocked my parents' front door for the last time. I didn't feel guilty. Not for a second. Piece by piece, I took back what was mine: the recliner, the dishes, the lamps, even the framed art I'd bought for their hallway. Each time I carried something to the truck, I felt lighter. Noah helped, humming a song as he worked. He didn't fully understand, but he knew it made me smile. When I was done, I left a single note on the empty coffee table. "You said you couldn't afford 2 kids. Don't worry. You don't have to anymore. Then I locked the door, started the truck, and drove away. For the first time in my life, I didn't look back. As we crossed the city limits, Noah leaned against me and whispered, "Mom, are we really moving?" I smiled, tears blurring my vision. "Yes, baby, we're moving somewhere that feels like home." We reached a small rental apartment I'd found online. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Noah immediately claimed the smaller room, talking excitedly about painting it blue. That night, as I tucked him into bed, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I didn't know what Mom and Dad would say when they returned, and honestly, I didn't care. For once, I'd chosen myself. But the peace didn't last long. 3 days later, my phone started ringing nonstop. The first call came on a Tuesday morning, just as I was making breakfast for Noah. It was Mom. Her voice sounded breathless, almost hysterical. "Lydia, what did you do? I froze, spatula in hand. Good morning to you, too. Don't you dare play dumb with me," she screamed. "We came home last night and half the house is empty. The recliner, the dishes, the TV, everything's gone." I stayed silent for a moment, then said evenly, "Everything that belonged to me, yes, belonged to you." She shrieked. "You can't just take things from your parents' house." "You mean the things I paid for," I said quietly. She went silent for a second, then her voice turned sharp again. "You are so ungrateful. We gave you everything." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Really, Mom, you gave me everything, like the vacation money you gave Hannah, or maybe the car you gave her when I had to walk to work. Tell me, which part of everything are we talking about?" She gasped like I'd slapped her. "How dare you talk to me like this?" I was calm now, maybe too calm, because for once I'm done begging for fairness. Then I hung up. 10 minutes later, Dad called. His voice was cold, controlled the kind of tone that used to make me feel like a scolded child. "Lydia, whatever's going on, you need to bring everything back." Immediately, "No." I said simply. He paused, maybe surprised I'd said it so easily. "This isn't a request. You've embarrassed us. The neighbors saw the moving truck. Do you realize how that looks? Oh, I'm sorry." I said with a small, bitter laugh, "Does it look as bad as telling your daughter you can't afford her kid but paying for your other daughter's vacation?" He exhaled loudly. "You're being dramatic again." And there it was, the line I'd heard all my life whenever I tried to stand up for myself. "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being done." I hung up again. For the rest of that day, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages from Mom, Dad, even Hannah. I ignored them all. But that evening, as Noah and I sat on the couch eating pasta, there was a loud knock on the door. My heart sank. I opened it to find both my parents standing there, red, faced, furious, still in their travel clothes. Behind them, Hannah stood smirking, arms folded. "So this is where you've been hiding," Mom said coldly, pushing her way inside. I didn't stop her. She looked around the small apartment with disgust. "This is what you left for, this tiny place. It's mine," I said softly. Dad stepped forward. "Where are our things, Lydia?" I met his eyes. "You mean my things?" He clenched his jaw. "You always were selfish." That made me laugh again, but this time it came out more like a sob. "Selfish? You're calling me selfish? You told your own daughter you couldn't afford 2 kids, and then you funded a beach vacation for the other one." Mom's face reddened. That was different. Hannah needed. Hannah always needs. I interrupted. "And you always give. You never once looked at me the same way. You never once said I mattered just as much." There was silence. Even Hannah stopped smirking. Then Mom whispered, "You don't understand. You were always the strong one. You didn't need the same attention." I stared at her, disbelief flooding me. "So your excuse is that I didn't need love. That's how you sleep at night." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You've caused enough trouble. Bring everything back or we'll involve the police." And Noah, who'd been sitting quietly behind me, gasped, "Grandpa." That one word, the fear in his little voice, broke something in me. I turned to Dad, shaking. "You'll call the police on your own daughter for taking back what she bought with her own money." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence said it all. I took a deep breath and pointed to the door. "Get out." Mom blinked. "What did you just say?" I said, "Get out. This is my home. You don't get to come in here and treat me like a thief." "Lydia, no." My voice cracked but stayed firm. "All my life I've begged you to see me, to choose me once, but you made it clear there's only room for Hannah. So now you can keep her, but you don't get to keep me." Hannah rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you're being overdramatic again." I turned to her slowly. "Do you even hear yourself? You've been handed everything your whole life, and you still act like a victim. Maybe if you weren't such a martyr, Mom and Dad would like you more," she said smugly. Before I could respond, Noah suddenly spoke up. His voice was trembling but steady. That's not true. Everyone turned to look at him. His little fists were clenched. My mom's the best. She's kind and she works hard. You just don't see it because you're mean. For a moment, no one said a word. Mom looked at Noah like she didn't even recognize him. Sweetheart, adults are talking and no, he shouted. You're just bullies. Tears burned behind my eyes. I knelt and hugged him tightly. It's okay, baby, you're right. When I looked up, my parents' faces were unreadable. They turned and left without another word. Hannah lingered a moment longer, smirking. They'll forgive me, you know. They always do. I smiled faintly. I know, that's your curse. She frowned, confused, then walked out. When the door finally closed, I sank to the floor, shaking. My hands were cold, my chest tight. Noah crawled into my lap and whispered, "Did we do something bad?" I hugged him closer. "No, sweetheart. We did something brave." The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I expected them to show up again, but they didn't. Then one morning, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a folded note in Dad's handwriting. Return the property or face legal consequences. Attached was a printed list, the recliner, the TV, the dining set. Every single thing I'd taken. I felt sick. They were really doing it. They were going to drag me to court over furniture I'd paid for. I called Kara, my best friend, crying. They're serious. They're actually threatening me. She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Then it's time to protect yourself. Do you still have the receipts?" I blinked. Receipts, of course. I kept them all, every single one, because my dad had always been so controlling about money. I learned to document everything. I went through my drawer and pulled them out, years' worth of purchases. Every date, every amount, every item. Proof, Kara helped me scan and organize them, labeling each item. She even called a friend who worked as a legal clerk, just in case. 2 days later, I sent my parents a polite email. "Dear Mom and Dad, attached are the receipts for every single item I removed from your home. As you can see, they were all purchased by me using my own income. I will not be returning them. Please refrain from further contact, Lydia." I hit send and felt something shift inside me again, this time not anger, but power. For once, I wasn't afraid of their judgment. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in months. But peace doesn't come easy in families like mine. Because the next morning, there was a Facebook post. Mom had written, "Some people forget who raised them. Some people steal from the hands that fed them. Pray for those who lose their way." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments from her friends, all sympathizing. "Oh no, what happened? Stay strong, dear." And of course, Hannah chimed in, "Don't worry, Mom. Some lessons come the hard way." I stared at the screen, trembling. They were turning the story against me, again. Kara saw it and said softly, "You could post the truth." I hesitated. For years, I'd avoided public confrontation. But maybe this time, silence wasn't dignity, maybe it was surrender. So I opened my own page and started typing. I stared at that Facebook post for a long time. Not because it surprised me, I'd expected it, but because of how quickly it spread. Within hours, it had over 200 comments. People who'd known my parents for years were sympathizing with them, painting me as an ungrateful, selfish daughter. It hurt. Even though I'd built a life away from their approval, part of me still wanted to be understood. Noah came into the room while I was scrolling. "Mom, why do you look sad?" I turned off the screen and smiled faintly. "Just people saying things that aren't true, honey." "Then tell the truth," he said simply. 8 years old, and somehow wiser than half the adults I knew. That night, after he went to bed, I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my laptop. I took a deep breath and started writing. I didn't write out of anger. I wrote out of exhaustion, out of years of being misunderstood, dismissed, replaced. I started from the beginning, the pattern of favoritism, the endless sacrifices, the way they'd always made me understand. I told the story of the beach trip, how my parents said they couldn't afford 2 kids, then funded my sister's vacation, how they expected me to keep quiet, and then I described the night I walked into that house, took only what I'd paid for, and left with my son. I even attached copies of some receipts, not to humiliate, but to prove the truth. I ended the post with these words: "Sometimes being a good daughter means being silent, but sometimes it means walking away when silence becomes self-destruction. I didn't steal. I reclaimed the pieces of myself I had given away too freely." I hesitated for a moment before hitting post. But once I did, I felt lighter. I closed the laptop and went to bed, not knowing what would happen next. By morning, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Dozens of notifications, messages, comments, shares. My post had gone viral not in a sensational way, but because it resonated. People wrote things like, "This is my story too. Parents like this never see the damage they cause. You're so brave for speaking up." Even some of Mom's old friends commented asking, "Is this true?" Others started tagging her original post, demanding answers. For the first time, I didn't hide. I didn't delete anything. I let the truth breathe. By the afternoon, Mom had deleted her post entirely. Then came the call. It was Hannah. Her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "You made them look like monsters, Lydia." "I didn't make them look like anything," I said. "They did that on their own." She sighed. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Dad's furious. He says you've humiliated the family. "I've been humiliated for 30 years, I said softly. "They'll survive one dose of honesty." Hannah was silent for a long time. Then she said, "They're saying they want nothing more to do with you." I smiled faintly. "They've been saying that all my life, just never out loud." She hung up. For the next few weeks, the silence was deafening. No calls, no messages. Even their friends stopped reaching out. And yet, for the first time in forever, my home was peaceful. Noah laughed more. I slept better. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. One evening, while I was sketching, Noah came up behind me. "Mom, what are you drawing?" "A house," I said. "The one we're going to have one day." He looked at it and grinned. "Can it have blue walls?" I smiled. "All blue, just like you want." He nodded seriously, and no mean people allowed. I laughed softly. "Exactly." Weeks turned into months. Life found a rhythm again. But one morning, while I was at work, I got an unexpected visitor. It was Hannah. She looked tired, thinner, paler, the smugness gone. She stood in the doorway of the bookstore where I worked, clutching her bag like she wasn't sure she belonged. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded and led her to the small break room in the back. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. "I didn't come to fight. I came to. I don't know, understand." I raised an eyebrow. "Understand what?" "Why you did it," she said. "Why you walked away. Why you'd rather post online than talk to us." I smiled sadly. "I tried talking for 30 years, Hannah. You just never listened." She looked down at her hands. "Mom's been different since all that. She doesn't go out much. Dad barely talks, it's like. They're ashamed." "Good," I said quietly. "They should be." She frowned. "You're not even sorry." "For what?" I asked. "For finally choosing myself, for showing the world what you all pretended wasn't happening." Her eyes glistened. "You don't know what it's like seeing them like that." I leaned forward. "And you don't know what it's like growing up feeling invisible." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she whispered, "I think they loved us both, just differently." I nodded, yes, and that difference broke me. She wiped her eyes. "Lily keeps asking why she can't see Noah anymore." My chest tightened. He misses her too. But he also remembers how you laughed when Mom called me dramatic. Kids remember more than you think. She nodded slowly. "I guess we all messed up." I looked at her for a long moment. For the first time, I saw her not as the golden child, but as someone trapped, still desperate for approval, just like I used to be. Maybe someday. I said gently, "When you're ready to stop defending them, we can talk again. Until then, I need space." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I get it." When she left, I sat alone for a while, staring out the window. The afternoon sun was spilling through the glass, warm and golden. I realized something then: revenge doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just quiet peace after a lifetime of noise. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. "It was Dad. We read your post. Maybe we weren't as good at being parents as we thought. Take care of yourself, Dad." I stared at it for a long time, my heart caught between relief and sadness. I didn't reply. Some things don't need closure, they just need distance. Months passed. The holidays came. Noah and I put up our tiny Christmas tree together, decorating it with handmade ornaments. He insisted on putting the star at the top himself. When we finished, he stepped back, smiling proudly. "It's perfect." "It is," I said softly. He looked at me curiously. "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa will ever visit again?" I thought about it for a moment. "Maybe, but even if they don't, we're okay." He smiled, satisfied. "We've got our own family now." I nodded, pulling him into a hug. "Exactly." As I held him, I realized that my story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what love was supposed to mean: unconditional, safe, kind. The next morning, I opened my social media again, scrolling through messages. One stood out. "Your story made me leave a toxic family too. Thank you." I smiled. For the first time in my life, my pain had a purpose. And that, I realized, was the sweetest form of retaliation, not making them hurt, but helping others heal. When I turned off the lights that night, I looked around my small apartment. The furniture that was once in my parents' house now finally looked right. It wasn't about ownership anymore, it was about peace. I whispered to myself, "You did it, Lydia." Because I had. I'd taken back my voice, my worth, and my freedom. And maybe one day, my parents would understand, but even if they didn't, I was done understanding for them.